also a lecturer at my university and sits on our board here at M-SParc. And he'll be having a discussion about leadership, management, innovation with Davies from XT and Noel from Phel. So, without further ado,
thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to delve right in because absolutely fun. Yeah, let's give them applause. I'm going to delve right in because so much to cover and so much to learn from you both. I was trying to read a bit about your history before we started, and you've both been successful sports people, footballers. I'm not going to say which I thought was more successful, but Kelly, you're miles ahead. But you know, first question is, you know, your time playing sport, how has that influenced your leadership style? So Kelly, with your, what impact did that have on your leadership style?
Well, I think football ingrained in me teamwork, you know, the values of teamwork, perseverance, trust, I think, you know, not only in yourself, but in others, and also the process, and obviously effective communication. So all of those qualities, as I would call them, have really helped shape my leadership, particularly as I truly believe in sort of creating an environment which is truly collaborative and where everybody feels valued and a key part of the team and can contribute to the collective goals, really. And I was thinking about it last night, and I think one of the things that football's really gifted me is that I'm not afraid of failure. I've never thought, oh, I won't do that because I might fail. Or, you know, I better not do that because people might perceive what happens if it goes wrong. And I think football gifted me that, you know, fearlessness and that risk-taking element of, you know, going, I'll go for this, I'll just give it that. And then finally, I think football gave me an identity where I truly believe I can be myself. And I think as a result of that, it shaped my leadership to a point where I feel I can be really authentic.
That's a huge one, not being afraid of failing. Because unfortunately in Wales, we're always afraid of failing, aren't we? And you talk to many founders and entrepreneurs, it is that fear of failure. But how do you overcome that, you know, that fear of failure?
I think one of the things is you need to reshape or reframe what failure is, because, you know, people think it's like, oh, it's doom and gloom, and and actually you can reshape failure as an opportunity to learn. And I think I've probably learned most in my leadership journey when things haven't gone so well, or to plan as opposed to fail. And I think it's also helped me personally. I think some of the biggest personal growth journeys that I've been on are where things have maybe not gone to plan or not worked out originally as planned, but they've actually come full circle and been even better than what was originally.
It's that opportunity to learn, isn't it? It's regardless.
It is, and I think you know, you should embrace these opportunities.
Absolutely. Noel, what about your leadership style then? How's that been influenced by your football career?
Well, football itself has influenced me hugely, because for many of you here who've got companies who are here in M-SParc, purpose for me drives everything really. So I was born in London. My family decided to move back to the west of Ireland when I was 4, where football was banned in the school. So I used to go to watch Arsenal when I was very small, and loved football. Where I arrived in the west of Ireland, we couldn't play football. We weren't allowed because it was a British sport. In the school we had to play Gaelic games, which I loved, by the way. But I had this purpose from 4 years of age, which was no matter what happened, whatever difficulties was, I was going to give. I didn't know this at the time. It transpired like this, that I was going to devote a life to football, to getting people to fall in love with the thing that I'd fallen in love with, which we weren't allowed to have. We weren't allowed to play it. So I set up my first club when I was 12. Wow. And that's interesting because, again, you don't plan this thing. You set up a club so that you can play football with your friends, and that gets you into organising something. Yeah. So putting the paperwork together at 12 with your friends and family and different things to apply to be a football club. So at 12, you're realising that I have to go to a farmer and buy a piece of ground and put up goalposts and start to develop an organisation, a club. So at that age, again, without planning it, you start doing that. And at the same time, you're trying to be a footballer. So in my house was a little bit chaotic, is the best way of putting it. Football to me brought a sense of having to organise myself in spite of everything. You had to organise your kit. You had to be at a certain place to go and play football. And in my childhood, probably wasn't as organised, is the best way of putting it, at home. So I had to organise myself to be a footballer if I wanted to be a footballer. So I had to make sure that I had planned myself, my week, if you want to wake up at the right time for a match day on a Saturday, all that kind of stuff. So in doing that, I started to organise my own life, actually, by trying to be an athlete and trying to be a professional athlete. I had to become really organised. A lot of my friends weren't organised. You know, Saturday, they would go out Friday night, Saturday was just a write-off, whereas I couldn't live that life. I wanted to be a footballer. So it gave me, from an early age, a sense of having to think differently and think right. So you had the two things going on. You had organising the game and wanted to be a professional athlete over here. So they kind of came together when I got into my 20s, which was, I realised I wasn't going to be Maradona. Certainly on the pitch, I wasn't going to be Maradona. But what I wanted to do then was to devote my life to administering the game. So it gave me a purpose. So my why was figured out quite clearly. Whatever happened around me, I was going to give everything to getting more people to want to love football and be part of football. And I also understood that football was much more important than just the 11 versus 11, that what it could do for a country. Yeah. So if you look at Cymru, for example, what football does for the language, for the sense of confidence, for bringing Cymru to the world, and how we've brought this huddle or confidence to the country through football, it's more important than football, it's more important than a game.
So you mentioned there, you know, football is much more than just the 11 versus the 11 on the pitch, and you know, you both run huge organisations with different people there. But how do you motivate and inspire those people then around you in your organisation? In particular, you know, those people that volunteer, you know, they're not being paid, they're contributing their time for free. How do you motivate and inspire them so that they give their best to help you achieve your goals?
From my own perspective, like, we've got nearly 1,000 football clubs across Cymru, and they inspire me half the time, to be honest, because you see somebody, I get paid, this is my job to lead the association, and then I'll go into a club and I'll see somebody who's given their whole life to developing this club because it's the right thing for the community, and it's a good thing and it brings the community together. That inspires our staff when they see people in the clubs giving their time freely and giving so much energy. Like this morning, for example, Helen and I called into Trevor Lloyd Hughes, who actually was the president of the FA before. We called into Trevor this morning. That's someone who's given his whole life to the community in lots of different ways. Football happens to be one of it. So inspiring them. From our side then, we've got to have a journey that's clearly communicable to everybody. So what we do is we go around to, we've 6 area associations, as I say, almost 1,000 clubs. What I spend a lot of time doing is in the evening times, going into the clubs, going into the area associations and showing them the journey that we're on, listening to them, is that the right journey? So we've got a strategy, I'm Cymru, Our Wales, which has 6 pillars, which is about building the right facilities, giving opportunities for girls and boys to play football, high performance, bringing Wales to the world and so on. It's a very clear strategy, you can see it online, but making sure they understand the journey, making sure they see that we've got clear leadership in terms of where we're going with the Welsh FA, having measurables so they can see the quick wins. So we can say, for example, if you go 2.5 years ago, I mean, Kelly can talk more about this, but 2.5 years ago, there was zero vision for facilities in Welsh sport, never mind Welsh football. There was no plan for growing facilities across Wales, which I was amazed by. My previous job was head of strategy at UEFA. I spent a lot of time going across Europe looking at plans for building facilities across Europe. When I came here, there was no plan for facilities. So instead of crying about it, we said, okay, how do we solve this thing? And we put together the Cymru Football Foundation. We managed to get a lot of money into this foundation. And now Kelly chairs the organisation that's responsible for delivering facilities. In the next few months, they'll give out £5 million of facilities across here that hopefully Anglesey will benefit from. And right across, like I see new pitches opening all the time now, and that gives us an energy. But importantly, it gives the volunteer an energy too, because if you're a volunteer running your club and you feel the FAW is giving you no support, is not behind you what you're doing, you feel you're doing it yourself. Whereas our job is to go out. We've built a whole grassroots team. We're in contact with all the clubs. So if the club wants help with money for facilities, liaising with the council, helping to get more coaches in, helping to build new, more facilities, recruiting more volunteers, they must feel our love, our TLC around them, so that they feel supported to inspire them. So it's a two-way thing. They inspire us because of the time and the effort they put into driving their clubs. Their purpose is incredible, but we have to try and inspire them too by giving them the support. So when they feel low, they feel, why am I giving all this time? That they feel our love, and they feel our support, and they feel our energy to keep driving them. So it's a push and pull.
You're kind of feeding off each other then,
Exactly.
really, aren't you?
Exactly.
And, so, Kelly, you mentioned before with your leadership style, that teamwork. And so how do you inspire people around you then to achieve your goals?
Well, I think one thing to flag is that I'm a volunteer chair, and our non-exec directors and trustees are volunteers as well. So I can, stand testament to what Noel's just said, that all of that does really pay off. I suppose for me, the way I've always done it is that I think you need to recognise the contributions. And you can reward people in lots of different ways. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetary, but we're in a really good position that we can give tickets and everything that Noel's just touched on there. I think it's really, really good as well that you're really clear to people about what your goals are, but also what your expectations are as volunteers. It's sort of like people think, well, you shouldn't necessarily do this, but you categorically should, because that's where sometimes it goes wrong. And I think the other one is, it's, as Noel touched upon, it's like leading by example. So, I can't expect a non-exec board to go above and beyond if I don't go above and beyond. And I don't commit to do events like this with Noel, and I don't commit to helping with the sustainability strategy or everything, so that everybody can see that actually together we're stronger, and that actually it's the first time I think we're seeing, as Noel said, we've got a common purpose with the Cymru Football Foundation, is that everybody's geared towards actually we want to deliver and develop, we want to deliver and develop outstanding football facilities that only, not only provide opportunities for people to play, but also enrich our community. So they go well above and beyond just playing. They could have social health benefits, employment, it's far and wide. And I think if you create that, people really start to get on the journey, don't they? And they don't want to not be involved.
Yeah.
And I think it starts to create this culture where everybody thinks, actually, there's opportunities for me to contribute here, and I want to feel able to contribute. So what can I do to put myself in a position where I can? And it spins it completely.
It's a great example because, like you said, it's non-monetary things, and a lot of businesses across Wales are struggling financially at the moment, but there is so much they can do that's not really going to cost them. It's just that attitude, you could say, or that thinking ahead, how to get people in. But you mentioned there, this journey, you both mentioned that journey. We live in a volatile world at the moment, and, all best intentions, that journey will slightly change sometimes. How do you steer that ship through these volatile times and make that decision? Look, we said we're going in this direction, but now we have to change it a bit. So, Kelly, if I can start with you on that one then, how do you change things or decide when to change?
Yeah, can I just add a point to the last one, just because I think it's really, really important. I can hand on heart say at the moment that the board that I sit on, and actually the FAW setup, is the best it's ever been. And I've been involved for 10 years. And that's not luck, by the way. So there's intentionality behind that, and the journeys that we create and the work we do. So just wanted to flag that to everybody, that this is not luck. There's a lot of intentionality behind this and magic that goes into it. I suppose the key thing to flag that everybody knows, and I sort of put my day day job hat on here, that change is happening faster than it ever has before. The world is interconnected. For a lot of people, it feels chaotic at times. So I think if you think that change is something that won't happen, or you're slightly resistant to it, you're off to a loser there and then. So I think what we have to be doing is actually be prepared for change to happen, and actually that things might need to be moved a little bit and things like that. And I suppose it's, you start looking for people that are quite agile and we've got adaptability, and we feel that actually we can just shift a little bit here or here. Probably the core of what we've set out to achieve will remain the same, but let's be open and adapted to that. I do think, though, that we can't just expect people to just grasp this and get used to change. And actually, we have to invest in equipping people with a different mindset, probably a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed one. And we have to equip people with a different set of capabilities so they're able to navigate that change successfully. But also, as Noel's pointed out throughout, that they're able to contribute to the greater and wider good. You know, this isn't just football. This is about what football can give back to Wales, and Wales gives back to the world and everything like that.
Because, you know, change can be just a stressful time for anybody, really, and just having that openness will go a long way. Noel, you know, the FAW have got a lot of strategic plans. You know, how do you decide, you know what, this journey, we need to change it a bit, and how do you get that buy-in when you need to change?
Well, the first thing is to make sure that we're in line with the whole diversity of thinking. So, for example, our governance has changed dramatically to make sure the people around the table have got diverse mindsets. So if we went with, I guess, you know, the old days where you had, you know, the game was run by a lot of old men, to be honest with you, and they've given their whole lives to the game. That's fine, but change requires diversity of thought and diversity of opinions, and people to challenge each other and check each other, not be from the same old boys club as well. We've got to have diversity in the room, and if you've got diversity in the room, it allows us to make much, much better decisions, I would say. As Kelly was saying, like, our purpose is really important. We're very clear on what we're trying to do to grow the game, etc. But we do know that the route to get there will have to change quite a bit. One of the reasons we're here in M-SParc, actually, is because we want to collect. I'm very proud when I see the FAW sign here and the flag outside, and we've got our football innovation officer here now, Aled. So we're really building this relationship to make sure that we've got our finger on the pulse of what's changing and how we change with that as fast as anyone. We all look for a competitive advantage, but it's not like the old days where competitive advantage was, I'll nail you and I'll get the win. The competitive advantage now is by being better partners with everybody. So in the old days, you might say, we're against this other sport. Now it's about us working with the other sports to grow together, except we really understand that because football is such a global phenomena, and I mean, you go home, turn your television tonight, you'll see football coming at you from everywhere, pretty much. We have a huge advantage because of the global nature of it. So we don't have to worry about other sports because we'll have the coverage we need, we'll have the movement that's there. But in terms of change, I think by getting the right people around us who are willing to check and challenge me as the CEO and the boards, making sure the boards are checking and challenging the executive through diversity on that. Just, we're in a much, much better place than we were even 2 years ago to make sure we're constantly checking and challenging ourselves against what's happening with change. I'll give you a simple example. So football traditionally is played from August to May. Now, there's climate change deniers out there, but what you can't deny is that nearly half our matches were called off in December, January, February. Like, no matter what you say, the games were called off. They physically were called off. They didn't get played. So a lot of people were at home not playing football. And therefore, you have to ask yourself the question, if we stay as we are we going to lose a lot of people playing football? Because the rhythm is broken up. If you're not playing football week after week after week, the whole thing starts to crumble. Therefore, with the diversity we spoke around the table, with the links to the data and insights that we have, with the links to likes of M-SParc, we kind of go, okay, what do we need to do to enable these people, which is 110,000 people at the moment, registered to play every week, It's a lot of people across Cymru who are playing football, who want to play football every week. How do we change the system? Even though we're 148 years old, how do we change the system next season, or the season after, to ensure that 110,000 people becomes 120, 130, 140, so that we've got a happier, healthier Cymru, better mental health, happier, healthier souls, because that's we know what football does. So we have to, even though it's gut-wrenching for people who've spent their whole life with a calendar season from August to May, if that doesn't work anymore, it doesn't work. And we've got to change. We've no choice.
How, you mentioned the FAW 148 years old. That
we don't look 140 at home, but we are 148.
That's a long time, and over that period, a lot of traditions have been developed and cemented. Yeah. How do you find that balance and get buy-in from people then? Getting that balance between traditions but also changing. Yeah. That must be difficult for an organisation that's so old.
Yeah, so what we did was we set up a data and insights department a couple of years ago. So we're trying to be more and more a data and insights driven organisation. So if you present the facts to people and say, if we do this based on these facts, this is the results we'll get. Unless the people you're presenting to are so embedded in their old ways that they just actually deny the facts, then I think we've really got our mojo on now. I feel we've got our mojo on that when we present plausible cases for change, that because the diversity in the room and because the decision-making bodies have changed their thinking, I genuinely feel we're in a very strong position. Put it like this, the best I can put it is I'm here 2.5 years, not a single proposal put forward that's presented with facts, data and insights has been rejected by our board or by our council for that matter. Not a single thing. I can't think of a single decision that, no, they've checked them, they've challenged them, they've asked us to go away and come back with more data to support a decision before it's done. But the FAW in 2024 backs the right thing to do, to change, to evolve, to get the right outcomes, which is to get more girls and boys playing football.
Kelly, I'm just picking up on something here that, a lot of this is about getting the right people around you to support you. How do you structure that team of people, the right team around you? How do you decide on which people you want in your team?
Qualities often, mindsets, because as Noel's touched upon quite a few times, actually, if you're stuck in your ways and you're not able to see, beyond the tunnel, that's normally a big sign for me. So you look for people with a certain mindset, certain qualities, and you begin building that team. I mean, we often, who are the next generation leaders that we're looking for? So not just the current ones, but the ones coming upstream. Who are they? What insights are they going to give? How curious are they to exploring different opportunities? Because we don't want people with that fixed mindset, it's always been done this way, so that's how it's going to continue. We're actually evolving on a daily basis, and we're investing, as Noel's touched upon, we're investing in data, because data does help shift mindsets as well. And when you shift a mindset, you get a behavioural change, and that's when you get, action. And when you start getting action, the team starts believing, doesn't it? And then once you believe it and you're moving forward, and then if you can't, you pick the right people that aren't afraid to, for change, they're not afraid of failure. You start building this it's a high performance culture, and when you have a high performance culture and people can see it, and the FAW is very, very good at storytelling. And it's also very good at storytelling in terms of celebrating the successes, but being honest to say maybe we got this wrong or we adapted this. And all of a sudden it starts building in a momentum. And what you have is a situation where the talent comes to you or seeks you out, as opposed to you having to go, where's the talent? Because people who doesn't want to work for the FAW? Or who doesn't want to, be a board member for the Cymru Football Foundation or help build facility? There's a lot of people out there, so it all starts having it's an on-rolling success, isn't it? But it is intentional. It's
Yeah,
not.
very much so. Like a good example, I think, is, we were set up with a senior council. So the way football works in Wales is, you're involved in your local club, you want to go further, you get elected, you become the leader of your league, then you get elected by the clubs to become, like politics in the government, I suppose, you become a politician in football, and you're the local chief, if you will, of football in Anglesey, wherever it is. And you come onto the FAW's council, and what happened is over time, you get a lot of people who are very similar gravitate to the same thing. So what we had to do is, I'm 47. I don't have a clue what my niece and nephew are doing. They're in their 20s. So the vast majority of football, if you look at the data, is played by children, because that's the widest part of the base. Now, if you get myself at 47 trying to make decisions for them, there's something wrong there. Now, if you get people in their 70s and 80s making decisions for them, they're poles apart. So what we did was we set up a youth council, which is people between 16 and 24. They get elected onto the youth council, and they make decisions. They'll have their AGM, I think, this Saturday, actually, where they'll sit around and talk about the FAW strategy. And these are people between 16 and 24 who understand much better how children are living their lives and how they're thinking. So when you talk about change and we talk about diversity, this group of 16 to 24-year-olds will come with a set of recommendations for the board to consider based on how younger people are thinking. And without that voice, well, they don't have a voice then. Because, that youth council to us is really important. Again, Kelly was talking about intentionality. That youth council was set up intentionally to gather the voices of young people.
Was there any issue then with the board, taking on board their recommendation, that youth council's recommendation? Because, it's all very well and good setting something like that up, but then having the ability to act upon what they're saying. Was there any resistance to that?
The first part of that was I came here in September 2021, and they had brought the FA before I came here. The former CEO of the Scottish FA had come in to do a full review of the Welsh game, and he had written up a thing called Sustainable Association for the Future. How do you make football in Wales sustainable into the long term going forward? And he, with this focus group, had written up 80 recommendations.
80?
80.
Wow. Okay.
So we went to Wrexham over to Collier's Park, which is one of our headquarters up here in North Wales, and we brought all the senior council together, and we spent 2 days in a room, and it was like when they elect the Pope, when you're waiting for the white smoke to emerge and that. So you spend 2 days discussing it and trying to put forward why these changes are important, and then you decide all these 80 are voted on block together. And I was really proud of the council that some of them voted for things that may not have suited them personally, but they were for the greater good of Welsh football. So, and we've seen trouble that other sports federations in Wales have got into because they haven't proactively changed. They've had to change. We proactively changed ourselves, realised the need for change. Our council agreed that, and that set in motion. I remember driving back from Wrexham that day, and you all have it in your own jobs, or you will certainly, certain key moments where the body have decided to do something quite dramatic. And I remember floating back from Wrexham after that meeting, knowing that we've now set out a chain of events that will make us a great football organisation. If they hadn't agreed to that, it was a different animal. They had decided as a group for the greater good. And this 80 recommendations included like the Youth Council being formed, we had a thing called the FAW Trust, which looked after grassroots football, and the FAW looked after elite football. We would merge the two together to have one team, one dream, one common goal. These things were absolutely crucial steps, and we worked very hard to pull all that together. The setting up of the Cymru Football Foundation came out of that to provide facilities. So that has all worked very well. What I would say is it's absolutely not all perfect. So your question was about the Youth Council recommendations getting taken on board. The truth is that's been quite slow to form, actually, because the Youth Council, it's fine to say we're going to set up a Youth Council, but there's quite a lot of training has to happen, a lot of, processes have to come on board to get the Youth Council together. Then you've got all these kids that come together, and they're quite unsure of how a council works. So I didn't envisage the length of time it would take to set up the Youth Council and to get them functioning, get the proper chair, the proper vice chair, to get them used to how protocols, decorum works of a council. So it's taken us a year or so to get them used to that. So at this weekend, they've got a meeting where they'll put together some things. I think it'll take longer for us to get recommendations from the Youth Council agreed at senior council level. What we want is the senior council members to take on board a mentorship approach. So, and this is quite important to us, that the ones who've lived their lives in football become mentors to the kids coming through, but also a bit of reverse mentoring as well. So that the kids can mentor the older ones who are making the decisions to explain to them what is happening in the world for young people. What are the stresses and strains of young people that they didn't face or I didn't face? They've got a whole set of different issues they're having to deal with. The world is more chaotic, as Kelly said. They're having to grapple with lots of different things. And I even see it in the FAW myself, for example. The old days of command control, for example, they're gone. Walking into a room saying, I'm the CEO, we're all going this way, off we go, guys. That's gone. If you can't get people to buy into the journey, or if I can't buy into the journey of what people want to do around the organisation, it doesn't work. So the new style, we've got a lot of young staff, for example, coming to the FAW. We've got all sorts of different expectations and different sets of issues that I'm even getting my head around to understand where they're coming from. So by listening, by working together stronger, as you say, it's changed a lot. Even the role of CEO has changed a lot, I would say. The role of leadership has changed a lot. It's much more about collaboration, understanding the issues of what young people face and working with them to try and I really struggle sometimes with that, to understand the issues they're coming, because I'm not young anymore. You know, we're a bit more middle-aged now. But to understand them and to understand their mindset and what they expect of the organisation, what they expect of the movement, the values they expect us to uphold, the behaviours they expect us to uphold, changes so fast. I mean, now it's sustainability, which Kelly's very much, we're driving forward sustainability. That's a whole new set of things. Equality, diversity, inclusion, driving forward. The Welsh language, we're driving forward. And all sorts of things we're driving forward, which are not football specific. But because we believe that they're the right things to do, and because our young staff and our young volunteers in the clubs expect us to behave like that, then we're almost push-pull. We expect to behave like that, and it's like a constant evolution of new things.
Yeah, I think that you said the days of the command and control are over, and I think that's true for business as well, that those CEOs that think, they can just command, are long gone. It's all about collaboration. But quick question for you both, though. We've mentioned a lot about change. How comfortable are you with change? Kelly, if I go with you first.
Well, it's what I live for, really. But it's interesting, actually, because the project around the Sustainable Football Association of the Future and the 80 recommendations, I actually sat on that, and it was interesting to go through that transformation process, even because it was a volunteer group that came together weekly to discuss that, really. And it was I think it was a historical moment in time when those recommendations got passed, but also Noel came in as a very different type of leader that was going to drive change and the change that we wanted to see. So I think it was a really historical moment, and I think I look for opportunities where you can really get involved in change. And my day job is, I create change makers all around the world. And we look for people that really want to make change happen, but they also want to contribute to the good of all. So I think it's something that a lot of people resist. And I think you shouldn't. You should really embrace it. It's something, the opportunities that can come out of doing something different. Not only for, it makes good business sense, because it does, but it's also for you as an individual. It's the best gift that you can have if you're used to change and you can embrace it, because the opportunities that it presents you with and the people that you meet, because they're different kind of breeds, then I always say it's the best thing that you could possibly do is embrace change. It will reward you in so many ways, and it will make your business far better, and it will give you that competitive advantage, because you'll be so more collaborative with people that things just pop up. It's surprising how many opportunities are out there.
Yeah.
Even in failure.
Even in failure. Because I remember when I was a youngster, I used to hate change. And then I realised it's going to happen. Change happens. You just have to get used to it and grasp those opportunities. Noel, what about yourself? Comfortable with change?
I'm so driven in my mind about growing the game here that I'll do whatever it takes to get ahead as football, and change provides opportunities for us all the time. So change for me is really good. Generally, it's very good. But to have the same core values that take you through that as well is important. So I can just see the end picture. You know, in my mind, I can see where we're trying to get to. It's just that it goes like that to get to the same place anyway. We want to give every girl and boy the chance to play football in Wales in the right circumstance. Now, many of them may choose to do something else, that's fine. But we know that when people are exposed to playing our sports, they tend to love it. They tend to, especially if we serve it in the right way. So if you serve it when someone's before 7 years of age, because around 7 we're starting to form our thinking, our what we're going to do basically at 7 years of age. So therefore we must try to get in front of the child and serve it in a way that's fun, that's a way that's enjoyable. So then you just hope that the pathway, or the systems we put in place, I should say, that they're set up in such a way that it allows the girl or boy to go through a journey that's a really nice journey, that they want to stay from babies football, which could be Disney Playmakers for girls, which is using Frozen and Disney characters to get people involved in football, which we have, right through to walking football, where literally because you get into your 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and you can't run as much, you play walking football. That's a new product that is growing very much in Wales for sure. We have a system in place for them that they really feel. So it's really clear in my head what we're trying to do. It's just you're constantly looking for opportunities as opposed to almost change. You're looking for opportunities, and if change throws up something that allows you to do that, then it's fantastic. I mean, it just works.
Good. We've spoken a bit about that diverse mindset and the benefits of diversity, but say with inclusion then, how do you ensure that everybody across your organisation gets included and feels part of it and has that voice? You know, we've all been in meetings where there is that loudest person in the room and, you know, there's that quiet person that you actually want to encourage, but to speak out. How do you ensure inclusivity?
Do you want me to go initially? You're looking at me, yeah. I think it comes down to that intentionality again, and around creating, I think, opportunities and spaces for people to feel that they are included and have a voice, and that voice is going to be listened to. And we create a lot of spaces like that. Even in boards, it's quite a... I've sat in board meetings in the past, and you always think, oh, should I say something? Should I not say something? But as a chair, it's been quite... You know, it has been intentional. What do you think about this? You haven't spoken for a while. Have you got a thought on this? Or do you think, you know, you haven't spoke here? You definitely have something. And it's surprising how doing that, A, keeps people on their toes, because they think you never know if somebody's going to ask me a question here. But it creates this environment where you think, actually, I have got a voice, I am able to contribute, and they can figure out the best moment in time when to contribute. And I think we do a lot of consultation, don't we? We have, Noel speaks at a lot of events and does road shows and everything, and you're always given that opportunity. Can you, you know, contribute to this? And then there's the playing opportunities. There's so many opportunities nowadays for people to play football. There's probably no reason why you shouldn't, really, because you could be a 60-year-old that could play football, you could be your toddler to play football, you could be a mother that's just returning from having a baby. There now are all of those opportunities. We have fit-for-purpose facilities that are, you know, are being built, are going to be built, and they're fully inclusive to everybody. We want everybody to play, and they'll get the opportunity. And I think it's just that change in thinking about how can we make this facility over in Anglesey over there fully inclusive to everybody in the community, whether or not they want to play or not play, because if they don't want to play, there are many other roles that they can contribute. Yeah. So I think it's just having that mindset and that diversity of thinking and saying, you know, let's put a lens on here. How's this facility going to be inclusive to everybody? Are those toilets over there inclusive to a young mother coming in that maybe has got a baby as well? Are the changing facilities on site? So it's just applying that lens and having the right people around the tables and the right voices out in the communities being heard to say, listen, we can adapt things here to make it the best possible way. And there will be moments where we don't get it quite right, but we've got the systems in place now to make sure that we get that feedback, and then we can reiterate and adapt, and we'll stand the best possible chance of having, you know, even with the Cymru Football Foundation, we will have world-class facilities in the future in Wales.
Yeah, we shouldn't be afraid of not getting it right, but as long as we try and then learn if we're not getting it right and adapt.
Well, the worst thing is
isn't it?
people don't try.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you sit with regrets.
Yeah, no.
So it's a great question. So in my mind, like the way the FAW is structured, you've got a council of about 40 people, the senior council. You've the youth council I mentioned. You've got the board, which is 11 people. You've got staff of 165, 170 people. So that internal, them organs are quite big on their own. Plus you've all these different committees. We've got 6 or 7 different sub-boards: finance, audit and risk, community game, international game board. So there's lots of bodies. So how I structure it to get inclusivity, because some people don't speak as much in meetings as others, as you quite rightly said. So the council is 40 people. At the moment, as Kelly said, I want a roadshow to meet every single one of them individually. An hour each, I meet them, so they can raise anything that they want that they haven't raised in council meetings. They can raise any personal issues that they have. The staff we meet every 3 months, the 165 or so, to do what they call a CEO forum. So we sit together, they can raise whatever they want, and we discuss it every 3 months, any issues that they have. The board, we see each other quite a lot, so we're in regular communication, I would say. Then outside, as you say, we've got 6 small FAWs. So we're in the North Wales, the northwest coast here. So we go and meet them quite regularly to get the views of the game. We've got grassroots club forums where a selection of the clubs can give their views on how the game is going for them. So you've got a kind of system of information coming in and going back out, and that's crucial to make sure it's in and it's back out again. We've got, as Kelly said, to get it really right, we've got to make sure that we have things. For example, we were talking at the senior leadership team meeting yesterday about, or on Monday, about having a kind of pulse with the staff, this constant drumbeat coming back and forth of how they feel about how we're being as an organisation. So if someone spots something, they don't like a certain behaviour, or they don't like how we're approaching something, or they do like it, by the way, that we've got that constant pulse between us of back and forth of how are we doing, constant self-evaluation with the staff. We should have the same with the council and our various decision-making bodies. It's constant to and fro. We do it currently kind of face-to-face almost, but we should do it more digitally, I guess, as change makers, to make sure there's a constant flow of information between us on how people are feeling, and that they've got a way of communicating instantly a satisfaction or dissatisfaction with how they see us approaching certain decisions, or if they've got a really strong point they want to make, they've got a mechanic to do that.
Yes, it's about having that system in place, isn't it? And that two-way flow of information, because many people say, we'll take the information, but we're not giving anything back, and that's a bit disastrous. So that two-way is quite important. But talking about information, we've already touched on data analytics, and it's something I'm interested in. You know, we're hearing about organisations using a lot more data. You both mentioned it already today. How do you find that balance between data analytics and that passion? You know, there's a lot of passion in football. You know, if we just think about the singing out matches and stuff, there's a lot of that passion. How do you find that balance between data analytics and that gut feel passion that you might have? Noel, if I start with you on that one.
For us, data is everywhere at the moment. We're very data driven. So if you take Cymru Football Foundation, simply to know where to build the pitches. If we're spending £1 million somewhere, you want to make sure there's a good return on that. So you look at where's the best return going to come from that.
Yeah.
So that's, you can do that from the sky. Like UEFA have a project where they can see where to build pitches or where pitches are and where there's a vacuum. Where if we built a full-size orbital pitch, we would get huge usage, for example. But if you take, we played Finland recently in a qualifier for the Euros, so we beat them 4-1, which was great. But we would use AI, for example, to see where's the best place to put the football. From corner kicks or from free kicks. We would use data analytics to look at their performances, our strengths, and see where the ball should go. And thankfully that night worked very well. But clubs use this all the time to look at the point where to put the ball, where our player is going to be to put the ball in the net. Now, the opposition can't see that, but everyone does it. So you're using AI to see how a game will be played out, basically. In terms of participation, for example, data is really important to us. I mentioned earlier about the seasonal adjustment. To make decisions on when the season should be played, when games should be played, should be based on data. If it's based on like I come from, I suppose, the old world, which, you know, I look quite cool and trendy today, thank you. But normally I've got a shirt and tie on, you know. It's just I was meeting Pryderi, I wanted to look cool like Pryderi all the time. So it was just, you know, I do still come from the old world, which is a shirt and tie, which is the football administrator, which still runs things a bit traditionally at times. And we've got to use data and insights to say, fine for us, but what does the player want? What does the consumer, for want of a better word, want from us? How do we serve this thing so that it's best used? And using data then allows us to see really quickly, because I use social media quite a bit, to get a sense from people out there, what is the sentiment towards this concept? And it's really useful to me, to be honest with you. If I say, for example, about the seasonal adjustment is a topical one at the moment, you can see then something that in certain forums, the traditional forums, don't even think about it. When you put it out to the public, hang on a second, most people out there want to see us adjust this thing and change something. So that's using a form of data and insights into how we make decisions. We've got a number of projects with data and insights that will allow us to make very big decisions for Welsh football. And I would say with the investment of money, which we're putting tens of millions of pounds out now, you need to make sure they're data-driven, not just emotional, you know, finger in the air. I like the idea of that, you know.
Kelly, what about yourself? How that data analytics part, but finding that balance?
Yeah, well, I think like with data's knowledge, and knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And it obviously helps you make better informed decisions, but it also helps you get investment. Because if you can show that return on investment from the data, so for example, with the facilities that we build, we're not just capturing data on the number of people that participate. We're looking at what's the social return on investment. What's the difference we're making to Wales in terms of the health savings, and you can use that in a really good way to actually push them for further investment in facilities. You know, because we do have challenges, even though we're investing a lot, we've still got a lot of challenges, and we need to invest a lot more. And we can use that data insight to, I suppose the key is, how do you find the balance between, you know, the hand, the heart and the head, so to speak. And I think that's where it goes back to a common theme that's gone through all of this. It's about actually finding the right people that are going to help you find that, create that balance and make those decisions between, actually, my heart says this, the data tells me my head should say this, and me as an individual, I need to be equipped to make the right decision and the right call on that. And that comes from trust as well, from the leadership, because Noel or I can't be on every decision, and we have to trust the team. So it comes to that, you know, that leadership that you build and saying, right, we've got the data insights, we've got the right people and the right team that are going to have a diversity of thought, are going to be curious to think what are the opportunities, what the changes, and we'll trust them to make the right decisions. And by doing that, you start getting to a place where if you've done everything else right, which is why we're intentional about it, we start getting better results. And the data really then starts to you know, the investment in data really pays off, doesn't it?
And once you start getting those better results, more people buy in then, and it becomes this avalanche, doesn't it, really?
And if you get quick wins from the data usage, then people go, oh, okay, we should use that more. There is one thing I want to say, again, I mentioned Pryderi earlier. Like when I first drove in there, maybe a year ago, I don't know, I was absolutely blown away when I came in here, when I saw this innovation hub in this beautiful setting. And, you know, sometimes because our headquarters is in Cardiff, sometimes people say that a lot of things go to South Wales, for example. But the data, we can show that our investment is spread really well from the Cymru Football Nation right across Cymru, which is really important to us that it's spread. We're opening a full-size outwater pitch in Carnarvon just across the bridge very soon. We'll hopefully invest in Holyhead very soon, in Anglesey, you know, in plenty of different places. But the data allows us to show that when football fans, and Welsh people actually, there's a bit of a kind of accusation the South get this and that, but we can show from the data that's not true from our investments, that it's really evenly spread. Even probably more so actually the North is getting right now than the South, because we're probably, I don't know.
That's okay, that's okay.
No, it's great, it's great. But the only thing I would say is that when I came in here, honestly, I couldn't believe the place when I came in to see the energy. I was just saying to Pryderi earlier, when I came in, the energy of this place is great. And we talk about partnerships. For us, this is the perfect partnership, because you know, you talk about confidence. I'm Irish, you'll get it by my accent. I was home for Easter, and the confidence sweeping to Ireland at the moment is unbelievable. You can actually taste it. It's in the air. They feel they can do anything. My friends, honestly, they think they could build meta themselves at home. Whereas my impression when I came to Cymru was a lack of confidence, to be honest with you. So when I came in here and I saw this place, I got a really strong sense. It was like a feeling that we can do something special here. So football is a global phenomenon. There's a lot of employment now, thankfully, because we've gone from a staff of 65 to 165 in the space of 2 years. So there's 100 jobs being created there. And we're about to create a whole new set of jobs in our football clubs. We're about to announce a 6 million investment into our league, which we'll launch next Monday, Tuesday. Which is a whole new set of jobs going into our football clubs. We want to create a football industry across Cymru, and we see M-SParc as a very important part of that. And we talk about change. This place can help us with the change. We talk about partnerships. This place is exactly that. It's about partnership, this space. So what I would say is for us, this place here, the M-SParc, the concept of M-SParc, embodies the FAW better than anything.
Wow, Praderi will be happy with that. Clearly from talking to you today, you're both very passionate about what you do and you've committed a lot to your organisations. But how do you find that work-life balance, when you're so passionate for something? How can you even switch off? Kelly, I'll look to you first. Is it even possible?
If you asked this question 4 years ago, I would have said, I'm not sure it is possible. Or I'm failing at it, on reinventing it. I'm not doing this very well. I was on that I'd very much been involved in startups. It was like 7 days a week. You would be there till 10, 11 o'clock at night. I thought I was present at meals or social events and actually had my phone that I'd just dip in and out of and everything like that. And I suppose when something goes wrong, and it did go wrong at a point, or I burnt out, so to speak, suddenly you think, actually, it can be achievable. So if you ask this question like now, today, I actually think Monday to Thursday, I probably work really, really hard until 10, 11 o'clock at night. However, Friday afternoon and until Monday morning, I'm winning. Because every Friday afternoon now, I'd go and do what I want to enjoy. So it might be a glass of wine. Well, it is a glass of wine on a Friday afternoon. And Helen knows me well. And at weekends, I completely switch off and I go to events and I make sure that I intentionally plan things so I can spend time with those that I want. So I think you can achieve it. I think there has to be a willingness or a change that happens that maybe forces you to. But it isn't easy, but it can be achieved. And I'm the other one that I always tell people is, which is often a shock to people, reality TV is my go-to. I love Love Island. I love everything that I shouldn't love, I completely do love. And sometimes it's that opportunity to just switch off that does you the world of good. So yes, it can be achieved, but there will be peaks and troughs.
It's funny you mentioned there, we're so used to plan our work life, but also to plan time off. That weekend is so important as well. Noel, you're a busy man, work-life balance.
I give you some views and the system that I use. So the views is not a nice way of looking at it, but I had to decide at some point what was the most important thing. So you've got this wheel of life, which has like a pizza that has the slices. So you've got your community, you've your family, you've got your mission, where your work, whatever it is. So I do kind of look at that every now and again and say, am I spending enough time in each one? But then at some point I had to realize something has to give at some point. So if your purpose is more important, so I've had relationships that have broken up because of my desire to drive the game forward. For example, friendships that have just disintegrated because I just was tunnel vision what I was doing. And I used to feel guilty about that. And I don't feel guilty anymore about it because that's just, there's only so many years to live, there's only so many hours in the day. You've got to kind of, if you try and do everything on that wheel, then you kind of end up doing nothing really, really well. So I kind of made a decision a good few years ago now to devote. I mean, I spent 10 years in Switzerland at UEFA, which was like a full-on mission. I was living there at the start of my own for the first good few years, and it was like morning to night was full-on what I was doing. I shut down friendships, I shut down family to do what I was doing because that mission was so important. Now, I'm a bit more relaxed about it, but I've come to the conclusion that I just can't do everything. And then I was lucky that my wife is very understanding. She understands how I work and how I think. And she's able to do a lot of the planning for our off-pitch stuff. So she has me watching Welcome to Wrexham, which is a lovely marriage between football and reality TV, I guess. So I'm watching the Wrexham stuff, trying to see, is there something relatable to work? So she's managed to work in events that we go to, or things we do, that I'm kind of interested in. So I'm not interested in reality TV at all. It has to be real life. So she'll know I'm interested in, I don't know, say the Kennedys. So I'd be interested in, say, John F. Kennedy, for example. How does his life journey work? So she'll find a documentary for us to watch or an event to go to that she knows I'll be interested and stimulated by. So we've done very well there. But I have to say I've got a system which, for me, comes from being a footballer. So something I noticed was the best athletes had a team around themselves. And that was really important to realise that, because you can't do it on your own. So I have a couple of things I do. I have to run. So running is my meditation. So if I jog or if I go to the gym, that's my meditation. I can solve anything almost in the gym or running. So when I've come back from a run, something could be a big issue. I've had a row with someone or we've got a big philosophical difference on something. I'll go for a run and I'll come back and the whole thing is solved. I know exactly what I need to do. I need to call that person, I need to say this, and we'll solve it. And invariably it works. The team around the team thing is important. So there's a guy who played in goals for Ireland for a good few years, David Ford. So I'll have a call with him every week and we'll talk about what happened during the week from a business perspective. How did I approach different things? What's coming up in the week ahead? What sort of outcomes should I look for from these different meetings? And for example, Monday morning I have 4 hours with Vicky, our leader of the office, and David, to look at the next few months and say what outcomes are we looking to achieve and what's the best way to manage the energy to get there. So if I was going to this event, it's a bad example, if I was going to this event, should I go for a jog in the morning? What should I eat kind of prepare for to be at your best at this different event? So that's how Gareth Bale lives or Jess Fishlock lives. So why shouldn't us as employees think like that? The second part I do, which is quite a recent thing, I went to a football club one night, they were doing first aid training. And they said you should work on your mental health while you're in a good condition, not wait for it to be bad. Yeah. So I was sitting there. I was there because it was my job, and I was watching this slide go up. And said you should look at it when you're in good condition. So I went home and said to my wife, because my own leaning would be quite Buddhist. I'm quite into Buddhist thinking and Buddhist philosophy. I was brought up a Catholic, which I had to be in the west of Ireland. But I became a bit more, I'm not a Buddhist, but I'm very Buddhist leaning, I would say. So I said to my wife when I came home, I said, they were talking about your mental health, you need to look at these things and try and top up when you're ahead almost. So she was very good. She came back to me and said, look, I've seen there's the Chinese Tibetan Center around the corner. And there's this psychologist who's trained on Buddhist thinking, philosophy and psychology. Why don't you go and see him? His name's Gwyn. So I went, okay, I'm willing to try it. And just walked in. He didn't say anything. I just talked about issues that I was thinking about or contemplating. And he just let me talk. And it was like what you saw years ago, Woody Allen, this neurotic kind of psychologist. I wasn't lying down on a couch, but I was sitting across him and talking about things and just different things. And I find every Friday at 4:30, I call into him. It costs me about 50 quid. It's the best money I spend to look at somebody and to literally unpack how I felt during the week about different events. So say I have a meeting with Kelly, I would literally just scribble down quickly and say, when I was meeting Kelly, I had this issue I had to deal with Kelly, for example. This is how I felt about before the meeting. This is how we sorted it out. This is how I felt after the meeting. Now, it sounds, but it's just trying to think about how you feel about certain issues. If you've got a conflict with somebody, how do you resolve the conflict? Why did that conflict occur? And what was something that may be underlying behind that I hadn't thought about? So literally, I spend an hour every week looking at my psychology and how I'm reviewing the week and looking at the week ahead. And then, as I say, early one morning in the week, I look at the business performance. So that's my little team around the team that is my go-to to make sure I'm on structure, I'm on course, and I don't get too blown off course, I suppose.
Yeah, that's an important lesson, isn't it? We all need to look after our mental health, whether we're in sports or anywhere across the organisations. Right, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you both. I'm just looking at the time. I'm going to look to Lois because I think she has some quick, rapid questions for us.
Yeah, thank you. So how you can do whilst we're watching you. So, Callie, first, you have an amazing football career, but as well, as an entrepreneur, being a successful entrepreneur. and we really need more female founders, particularly in this region, but nationally as well. So you mentioned there how football can give confidence, not to fear failure. So what can we do to mainstream that mentality to bolster the number of female founders, you think?
I think one of the biggest things is we need to really story tell about. So you can't be what you can't see. So we really need to tell the stories of those that are out there, and that will enable people to be more inspired. But I think it has to start at a really, really young age. Noel touched upon it before. At 12 years of age, I had to find a solution to a problem that I saw and different things like that. Young children, I mean, I think we do it in work. You will see that people become change makers on average when they have something at the age of 12, which was quite, that wasn't a shock. But young people, even younger, begin to see problems in their world far sooner, and they're able to start thinking about how I solve that problem. And I think what we've got to do is instill at that stage and that early development stage, that confidence of actually it's okay to not, it's okay to fail. But what does that failure look and what can it teach? And I think if we start, we have to invest in it in Wales at a very young age, and in getting, young children and young females particularly exposed to these role models, and also for us to invest even in teachers on how do we equip with these young females with this mindset and these capabilities so that they can take on new challenges, and that when those new challenges come along, they don't think, I'm going to fail, so I'm not going to bother. So it starts, I would say, there's a two-pronged approach to this, but it has to start very young.
Do you mind if I bring this back to football a little bit? Because we set up a program maybe 2-3 years ago called Be Mentoring.
Yeah.
And football, because the language we used and the environment probably wasn't as inclusive as it should have been in terms of its language, despite the exponential growth of the female game, it wasn't as maybe it's open, not deliberately, but it probably wasn't as inclusive as language and different things. So the FAW set up this Be Mentoring program. Helen, for example, is a mentor. I'm sure you're a mentor, Kelly, and many others. So it's basically young girls coming into the system to be mentored through. I think we've hired, Helen, 6 or 7 from that program have become full-time employees of the FAW, not because there was any box taking or anything like that, because they were the right people for the jobs, and they've all turned out, I think, one after the other to be more brilliant than the next. We've been so lucky with the brilliant young females coming into the organisation and making us better. But we had to make a conscious decision to go out and to create this mentorship program to bring, and to give them the confidence to walk in. So, like, hopefully in the future you'll have CEOs and presidents and all sorts will be female, which inevitably will happen. But to accelerate that and to push that forward, you have to intentionally kind of go out and, put that program in place to so what you're saying is the young people, getting that.
Yeah, we have to start at a young age, and I think that Be Mentoring program is fantastic. It's one of the best that we've got.
Successful.
And those females will go into the game, or they might even be female founders of organisations because they've seen opportunities within or out of the game. So you've got to take a number of stabs at this, but it's definitely got to start young because the data says it.
Thank you. And the final question. So, Noel, there's clearly amazing vision at Phel and it's healthy, sustainable vision, but is it difficult to share that vision and get that buy-in through the organisations in Wales? So from the council, Phel, to the under-10s and the weekend. How do you share the vision? Is there a magic wand for the buy-in you need in an organisation?
Well, the thing about the FAW is that we're like a government of football. So we've got huge amounts of different areas, whether it's from safeguarding to facilities, to participation, to high performance, to stadium events with 30,000, 40,000 people in there. There's a very wide, so it's very hard to condense that into something that gets everyone together. I think the Together Stronger mantra works really well for us. The fact that we're here in M-SParc is exactly Together Stronger. The fact that we're a small country that has to punch above its weight. We're up against Germany, Holland, France, all these massive countries. outpunch them to get to a semi-finals of the Euros with the men. Hopefully the women qualify for their first Euros very soon with the new manager Irene and that. To do that, we need to, play to our strengths and some. So we're hoping that the relationship here with M-SParc will give us a competitive advantage to get to where we need to get to. To bring the vision to, the way I look at it is going to the under-10 player, for example, or going to the local club, I suppose. We've got to keep the message very, very simple. So we've got a strategy that I could spend a day talking about, but we just break it down into bite-sized pieces for them to get behind. What we do need to do, though, is we've got this idea which is going from the park pitch to the World Cup, which we've managed to do. The likes of the squad that got to Qatar went from the park pitch locally to the World Cup. So we have that. That doesn't translate well enough for us to our audiences. It doesn't connect. So we're looking to do very soon is to do a purpose session ourselves to try and find something, like Together Stronger works so well for us. But we need to find something that gets our Wales to connect better. So we don't have the answer to that today. We break it up into bits that we communicate to people as we need it, but I still think we can do more on our purpose and communicate it better.
Thank you very much. Diolch i chi gyd am amser heddiw a gyda'r cynnal sgwrs ddifyr. Thank you very much for engaging on a really interesting conversation. Thank you both, Kelly and Noel. So diolch yn fawr.